we last left Agent Cooper in the glass box. He falls out of the glass box into black space, and then he falls into this really odd dimension. He finds a woman sitting on the couch in this dimension. She's sitting in front of a fireplace. Her eyes are sewn shut. She can't actually speak. Time seems to be bent, and also space seems to be bent. I'm not sure if it's just one or the other, but as you see them interacting in this scene, they can't just directly walk forward. It's a really weird place, and it is hard to determine if it's just time that's out of place or time and space that's out of place in this place that Cooper lands. Now, the most significant part in this room is the box on the wall. When we first see it, it has the number 15 on it. And the woman with her eyes sewn shut is continually telling Cooper to stay away from it. She then leads him to the top of this room, and we're just in space. She flips a switch, ends up being jettisoned off of it, but the switch seems to reset something in this room. The pounding on the door that we've heard from the beginning stops, and then when Cooper goes back in, the whole room seems to be reset. The box now has the number 3 on it, and there is a different woman sitting on the couch. Now, this woman, her eyes are open, and she's able to talk to Cooper. She tells Cooper that when he gets there, he will already be there, and warns him that her mother is coming, so he needs to hurry. This is the only other thing I really got from this box, that it almost seems like a place of punishment. Both the first and second lady seem like they are being punished, that they have to just sit there. Specifically, the first woman whose eyes are sewn shut and she can't really speak. They're both very afraid of the pounding on the door, and the second woman refers to it as her mother, like her mother's coming into her room to yell at her. So there is definitely this feeling of this place is a place of punishment, but beyond that, I'm not really sure what it is. It could just be a gateway from one world to the other. We've never seen this gateway, even though we've seen people go into the Black Lodge and come out. Really difficult to say exactly what it is. But once the box does have the number 3 on it, and the second woman tells Cooper to hurry that her mother's coming, we see Cooper get sucked in a very odd fashion through the box, and he loses his shoes behind. The other point of significance that occurred in this odd dimension was when Agent Cooper was on top of the box, he sees Agent Garland's head float by, and Agent Garland says, "Blue Rose." We know from the second season of Twin Peaks that Blue Rose is a Air Force study about the phenomenon in the woods of Twin Peaks. It was what Major Garland Briggs was working on. So his head floating by says to Agent Cooper, "Blue Rose," as of giving him a hint. Now, this head floating by is really significant. As I said in my first video on parts 1 and 2, the body with the head of Ruth Davenport is Major Garland Briggs. Now, the fact that his head floats by and speaks to Cooper also gives us another possibility, which is that Major Garland Briggs isn't exactly dead. Somehow, his head is alive somewhere and still functioning, even though his body is dead in Ruth Davenport's bed. So, we're gonna have to wait and see exactly how this plays out, but I got a funny feeling that Major Garland's head is alive and talking somewhere, probably in some secret lab. So after we see Agent Cooper go through this box, we are brought to Dougie. Now, Dougie looks just like Agent Cooper. Well, not just like him. He's got different color hair and his body weight's a little different. But it's a doppelganger of Agent Cooper. And he is in some trouble. Dougie owes some money to some people. He's not really, he doesn't have a lot of character, this guy. He's married, has a son, has been missing from home for 3 days, missed his son's birthday, and we find him held up with some prostitute in a house that's for sale that they're illegally using. So, not the most upstanding guy, Dougie. And what happens to Dougie is he gets sucked into the Black Lodge. Now, how does this happen and why? Well, we see a lot of things happen at once. We see Agent Cooper being sucked through the plug. We see Doppelganger Cooper driving down the highway and suddenly running into a lot of problems with his cigarette lighter glowing and electrifying that matches the sound and same type of feeling that the box that Cooper's being sucked into gives us. So we see that Cooper was supposed to be sucked into the box and blown out of the cigarette lighter in Doppelganger Cooper's car. But why didn't that happen? It didn't happen because Doppelganger Cooper held his poisonous throw up inside, and Dougie threw up. It was without a doubt a homing device for Agent Cooper to come back into the real world, so he would know exactly where to land. And because Doppelganger Cooper held his chunk inside and Dougie ended up throwing his chunk out, Agent Cooper was brought to Dougie and now is living the life of Dougie. This is when we learn that Dougie's in trouble. When we see Agent Cooper leave with his prostitute, I forget her name, there's two men looking to kill Dougie. And Dougie just escapes this by accidentally dropping his room from the Great Northern, room number 315, and bending down to pick it up. And because he's bending down to pick it up, the hitmen miss him in the car, and Dougie gets away safely. When we see Cooper find the key to the Great Northern in his pocket, it is another hint that Agent Cooper was in that Black Lodge for 25 years, literally like a statue. He did not move at all. The last thing we actually see about the real Dougie is him sitting in the Black Lodge and the one-armed man telling him that he was manufactured for a purpose, and that purpose is now over. Very interesting, manufactured. And I don't know what he means by this, because when he says manufactured, it implies to me that like Dougie wasn't born as an infant and grew up to an adult. But then again, how would they just slip somebody into society as an adult? I'm not really sure, but it did seem to imply that Doppelganger Cooper, or people he's working with, perhaps we should say Bob, somebody from this group manufactured Dougie so that Doppelganger Cooper and Bob could stay in the real world when Agent Cooper came back. It seems that Dougie was made specifically for what we saw happen. He was made to allow Agent Cooper to come into the real world while Doppelganger Cooper stayed in the world. And then we see Dougie, it seems like his soul and body separate. He kind of disappears. There's a big glowing ball and then a flat black disc. I'm seeing the flat black disc as his body and the glowing ball is his soul. Then we see everything just combine into a tiny, tiny, tiny little ball. His ring had fallen off and the one-armed man takes his ring and puts it on a black marble table. That was kind of odd too. But then the golden ball is obviously Dougie. When Jade sees Agent Cooper as Dougie, she immediately notices that his hair is different, his body's different, and she even says, "You might have had a stroke or something, Dougie." But it's interesting because Jade has no interest in actually helping him. All she wants to do is get rid of him as quickly as possible. As a matter of fact, when they're sitting outside the casino, she says, "I think you probably had some kind of stroke or something. You better get out." Pretty cold-hearted. When she says you can get out now, and she's speaking to Dougie, telling him to get out of her car, Cooper has a flashback to Laura in the Black Lodge telling him you can get out now. So from this we can see that Cooper is going to be able to retain his memory. The memories of what happened to him, where he is, what he's doing are buried somewhere in his mind, but right now he's having a hard time accessing them. He's actually very infantile when we first see him. He walks into the casino. Again, he needs help. He keeps telling people, "I need to call for help," but nobody really realizes how much help Cooper needs at this point. This was significant that Agent Cooper needed so much help, but could not receive help from anybody. Or did he? We see the zigzag floor and the red curtain appear above slot machines that are going to be winners for Cooper. And then Cooper turns into Mr. Jackpot as he wins 30 jackpot payouts in the casino. The other interesting thing about this whole concept of needing help is even though Cooper never gets help from any of the people around him, we see that he helps the old lady who's playing the slot machines. Now, this old lady was even cruel to him. When he first meets her, she gives him the finger when he tries to help her. She's not nice at all. But still, when she asks for Agent Cooper's help, he helps her. So, not sure why this whole help thing was even brought into play, but it was the theme of Cooper in the casino. Cooper needed help, and nobody was willing to help him, but Cooper was very happy to help someone who asked him for help. And then the end of part 3, we're brought to FBI headquarters where we see Albert and Gordon. They are having a meeting about a case where a congressman is suspected of murdering his wife, and there are 6 clues on the table that they go through. These clues are really odd. and don't seem to have anything to do with anything. It's hard to say. But after this meeting about the congressman's murder, they dismiss everybody in the room except for Tammy, and they ask Tammy to tell them about what she found in New York City. Now, Tammy is investigating this glass box incident, and she doesn't have any information. She tells us that they don't know who owns the building still. She said the building is heavily guarded all the time, but they couldn't find any of the guards. And then she has the video footage of the cameras on the glass box. She knows that some kind of entity entered the glass box and then viciously murdered the two people in the room. There's no forensic evidence of the murder. There's no traces of anything. But the most interesting part of her report is what she does not report. And what she doesn't report is Agent Cooper in the glass box. We saw Agent Cooper appear in the glass box. It was right before the two people were murdered in the room, and yet Tammy did not see this on the footage. Hard to say whether she missed it or for some reason if Agent Cooper wasn't actually recorded on these cameras. It is at this point that Gordon is alerted that he has a phone call, and it is about Agent Cooper. If you like the video, don't be afraid to give it a like. If you're just as excited as me about the upcoming episodes of Twin Peaks, go ahead, subscribe, click the bell, and you will be notified every time I upload a video on Twin Peaks. If you know anybody else who watches Twin Peaks, go ahead and share the video with them. It will give you something to talk about. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great day.